Oh, I'm really just connecting people. What I've always done is connect people. I'm connecting people to what they want.
I don't care where you're at. You're going to walk out of there and say, I am grateful I went.
What we're having come together is not just high net worth, but it's high heart worth.
Hello and welcome to the Liberty Spenders podcast. I am Kurt Luidhardt, your host and co-founder of the Prosper Group, an agency that's raised over $500 million and elected over 100 members of Congress, 15 governors, 15 U.S. senators, and 1 president. And now, in addition to helping political candidates get elected, we're helping your business get elected by answering this question. What if you could exponentially grow your business by tapping into a unique and engaged audience we call Liberty Spenders? Liberty Spenders are 76.5 million politically conservative or faith-based consumers who are looking to buy from businesses that align with their values. If you want to learn more, you can now get our book free at libertyspenders.com/free and learn more. Our guests today are Brian and Nicole Slade, creators of Trauma to Triumph and AIM Elevated. With Trauma to Triumph, they offer free tools and a 7-week program to support recovery and empower our communities. And through AIM Elevated, they boost personal growth and leadership with innovative coaching. Brian also wrote the compelling book Cleared Hot, which I have here, sharing his insights on overcoming obstacles. Together, they blend compassion and solutions to make real impact. Brian and Nicole, thank you for joining me today. I'm happy to have you too. I want to start a little bit with the Trauma to Triumph program because I've met you guys briefly, both of you, when I was invited to an event that you guys were participating in called Jetson Capital. And then there was another event just before it that you'd organized for impact-minded entrepreneurs. And Brian spoke there and talked a little bit about his story, which I knew you guys as invited me to this cool business event, but I had no idea about, Brian's background and what he's been doing. And it was such a compelling moment in the entire event to hear Brian talk about his passion helping veterans and others. And I just wanted to start with that because that's where I got to start and think, wow, this is an amazing couple. So talk a little bit about what you've created, why, how that whole thing began, Brian.
Yeah, it was kind of a journey, obviously. I'm at 27 years in the military. I flew Apaches and then I transitioned the Air Force and flew combat search and rescue with the Pavehawk. And throughout that whole process, I mean, as it's very common knowledge that, people dealing with post-traumatic stress disorders is causing lots of problems. What really stuck out to me was that there were those that experienced those same events and drew strength from them, or they were actually foundational to who they were and how they saw the world, and then there were those that carried that weight, and it was still as foundational, but not in a good way as far as how they saw the world, and it was the same catalyst, just a different result, and that was something that stood out to me, and I was like, why is that? And so I got with people who were a lot smarter than me, and they letters behind their names, those guys, and they drilled in and they really asked a lot of questions on, what did you do? How did you, because I felt like some of those most horrific experiences that I had, while I wouldn't choose to experience them again, gave me an gave me something that I couldn't get any other way, in a positive way, as far as gratitude and perspective and a strength of positioning. And so they said, hey, there's stuff you can teach. I mean, things that you were doing, you can teach. And what was interesting to me is preparing oneself. The things that they said you could teach also were similar steps to repair, right, as well. And so I was like, well, so that's what said, hey, I'm going to write a book that I don't want it to be overly didactic or whatever. I want it to be, people read it and be into it, but then give some little sneaky lessons in there and hopefully just spark the conversation of post-traumatic stress growth rather than disorder. And through that process, I met my wife, now wife, wasn't wife then, and she had experience with military and PTSD in her family, and I'll let her speak to that.
Oh yeah, sure. I'd love to. Yeah, just my experience with it growing up. We had Well, my biological father was in the military. He was a veteran. He died of a drug overdose at a very young age. And then I had uncles who were alcoholics. One died of alcoholism, another died of suicide, also veterans. And then my father, who raised us and adopted us, was also a veteran who suffered with severe PTSD and the effect that had on our family and just our upbringing. So it was all around me, and I saw it on a daily basis of, the effects that PTSD can have not only on the people that are experiencing it, but their families and the communities around them.
And so the intention of the book always was to create a training, was to create some sort of training. And w- when one of my business partners said, "Hey, Brian, you need to go check out this training. You like to do hard things, go do it." And I was like, "I'm free that weekend. I'll go do it." I had no idea what it was about, and I thought it was going to be like a business, seminar or something. And I went to. It's called the Journey to Nobody, and and it really was the training that I was wanting to create, and it's also where we met. And so I'm like, I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I just need to talk to this guy that's doing it. And so that's what we did, and talked to him, say, "Hey, you willing to collaborate and do this type of thing?" And he said, "Absolutely." He's like, "If it's going to make the world a better place, that's what we're about." And I was like, "That's what we're about too." So we formed the nonprofit Trauma to Triumph, to help fund um, people. It was supposed to focus on vets and first responders, which it does, but we'll help anybody that's struggling with trauma, right?
Well, I was gonna say just the training for me was life changing, right? Like it was 180. And so I saw that. And I think we saw that in a lot of people around us where Brian, it was very confirmational of stuff you already believed and were doing that was helping you. And this was a way to teach that and to help get it out there. For me, it really did change my life.
Yeah,
And it really is 180 from where I was at to where I'm at now. And this was like the catalyst that helped me reposition trauma that I had experienced and realize that this was happening for me, not to me. And I was excited to live life and experience life after that. And I think we have a lot of people that come through that experience something similar.
yep. What's super cool about it is it is. I've never seen a training that's as good at meeting you where you are, right? And basically what Nicole's saying there, we have people that come in that have done tons of self work and tons, they're entrepreneurial, they're very successful. And then we have people that are really, really struggling, like addiction, and they're unemployed, and we have that whole spectrum in the room. And everybody rolls into that training with whatever we call it, your somebody, your ego, whatever. This is how I identify to the world. This is how I share who I am. And the process takes you back to we call it your nobody, but basically when you came into this world, you were whole and complete. You were perfect, right? And we somewhere along the line, we get this idea that we're not that, right? That they're usually caused by a pain or a fear, and that, hey, I'm less than, I'm not worthy, I'm not this, I'm not that, and then our life is trying to fill that void, which we created with a story that we told about a pain or a fear. And this experiential training really allows people to walk back and then walk forward from that and understand that they are whole and complete.
It's interesting. Tony Robbins talks about this very thing, and your story that you were telling is really akin to what he says, which is he tells a story about an event he was holding, and he had two. If you've ever been to a Tony Robbins event, particularly his Date with Destiny thing, you fill out this like 15-page form, um, which helps prepare you for the event. And he said two different people filled it out. They had the exact same story, both from some. He said, I think Vietnam, so some experience in Vietnam. Both of them had a really traumatic best buddy die in front of them. One person in their forum was talking about how what it meant to them was that life is precious and that they should, preserve and protect every friendship, and live life for the fullest because it could be gone anytime. And the other person had concluded life is fragile and everybody hates each other and everything ends. And they were, two exact same experiences. He said in his version of the story, he has to go back because he thinks I already read this story, right? Um, but what you're talking about, I think, when you're talking about your perspective on your experiences over there, was that you had a way of, with your mindset of looking at it, it was very different than somebody who's like, what you called it, disorder or growth, right? Wasn't that the?
Mhm. Yeah.
I like that perspective.
Well, you know what? As funny as I thought I made that up, but I didn't. I thought like a post-traumatic stress growth when I was writing in the book. I'm like, "Oh,
Uh-huh.
post-traumatic, this is genius. I can't believe,"
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then I Googled it, and it's a real term, and I didn't come up with it. And
Uh,
so,
well, if
but
it's not trademarked, just run with it, right?
yeah, hashtag, yeah. So, no, it really is about how you digest any situation, any circumstance. We every human being has limiting beliefs that we've created ourselves, um, but really that's what the training does really well is helping people to kind of, hey, I'm living my life, but then observe yourself living your life and saying, yeah, that's I'm creating that and I'm creating this, and and really seeing that it is all there for you and that you are super involved in it, as far as like you're 100% accountable for your experiences.
Yeah. And do you guys now host the events together, or you're part of this other gentleman's thing, or how does that work today?
For the Journey to Nobody, we're just part of the staff, and we help facilitate it, and, yeah, the guy that was running the thing is still running the thing because he's in his zone of genius. I ain't messing with that.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, it works really well.
yeah. Um, I think it's really powerful, what you're working on, and I feel like maybe I'm in a different group of people perhaps, but this is a problem that I'm 45. When I didn't think existed 20 years ago, right? I wouldn't have, I was I've known, um, veterans, relatives, other people who participated, and never I felt like I didn't hear anybody talk about post-traumatic stress disorder. Again, it may just be the group I was in, but it seems like maybe we're just more aware of it now. Maybe we just, for a long time thought this was an aberration or didn't exist. What is my perspective on that true? Is this something that people have been talking about since World War II? Has awareness grown like I perceive it?
Well, it's always been talked about. It just depends on what light you're shining on it, right? So shell shock was hey, he's experienced shell. That's PTSD, right?
Right,
But in the military in general, I think, um, you know, suck it up and drive on is a big thing, right?
right,
Uh,
right,
and there's value in that. There's absolutely value in suck it up and drive on. But I think where the narrative has changed now is that we acknowledge that there are deeper searing impacts and that, you know, shoving stuff down isn't necessarily the right way to address it. So,
Well, and I think now we're, at the age of information.
right.
There's more ways to communicate about things. And so we do hear about things more than we did before. And also I would say that in just what I've seen in the community is that it was more I think you couldn't say, "Hey, I need help," right? That was kind of frowned upon. And now they're encouraging people to say, "Hey, I need help."
yeah, and it's still got some ways to go because here's the difference that I've seen since the time I was in the military. One was kinda like, what's this guy's problem early on? Why is he such a wuss?" From the very beginning. And then it slowly metamorphosed. No, we don't do that. We don't do that. And now what I see a lot of is the leaders do push it. Hey, if you need help, say something. You're open to do it, but they very rarely acknowledge that they need it, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
very rarely is the leader that's pushing it saying, "Hey, I need help." Right? And
Yeah,
so I think that's the next metamorphosis of it is from the very top acknowledging we all need it. We all need to digest this in a healthier way or even just this is what I say, like people when I tell war stories, they're like, "Man, you talk about that like without any kind of." I was like, "That was my job, right? Wasn't me. Doesn't define me. It's just was my job." And I feel like when you're in a healthy space, you can talk about your job just like a banker could talk about his job, right? right? And then you're okay with, then it's not, I mean, yes, there's things that I'll tear up about because they're emotional, but if you had an emotional thing happen when you're a banker, you would do the same, like the same thing, right? So
Yeah, I mean, there's I don't know where I first heard the metaphor, but there's a difference between having a scar and a open wound, right? Scar you can point to and say this that happened. Open wound, every time you prick it, you're in pain, right? But it also sounds like, Nicole, your experience, you went through the same thing with that Brian did, that same uh, journey to nobody, and got amazing stuff out of it, even though you yourself weren't in the military.
tell her where you went. Tell, I mean, people go for all different reasons. Like, and it's just, it's very effective for the trauma in the military, but hers was
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, absolutely. So just with I never really dealt with any of the experiences that I had growing. I think we all grow up with certain amount of trauma in different respects, right? And it's like I think our generation especially was kind of like, well, that just happened. Everybody has those things happen to them, right? Like it's not like super abnormal. Like you're like, yeah, everybody experiences challenges, and it was just kind of part of growing up. I didn't know that I needed to deal with it really, and I hadn't really dealt with any of that stuff, and then I grow up, and then I create more trauma for myself, right? Like, I get into bad relationships, I make poor choices, and I started, using drugs and alcohol as a means to cope, and so then I developed an addiction, I experienced addiction, and I went to rehab, and I remember I went to a 30-day inpatient one, and I thought, "This is one that's supposed to be kinda more for professionals." I took 30 days off work, and I thought, "I'm gonna really get myself together," and I got there, and it was like, everybody's trauma bonding. We're all s like, they're basically saying, and it wasn't there was a lot of good things that came out of it, but they were kinda saying, like, "Look, you're probably gonna come back here, everybody does." Like, you're gonna fall on your face when you get out there, and we expect that of everybody, right? Like, and I thought, "Wow, I really don't love this system," and so I got out of that, and it was kind of just this weird experience in my life where I was like, you're an adult, and they put you in this place, and they give you all these rules, and you're like, "This is so strange." I'm like a grown-up who makes my own choices, and it didn't really feel like a fit for what I was looking for to kinda create that shift that I wanted to have. And so I just, kept trudging along, and my friend kept saying, "Hey, you should go to this transformational training. You should go to the Journey to Nobody." And he was telling me for 3 or 4 years before I actually went. And then one weekend, he said, "You really should go. We're gonna have one coming up next week." And I thought, "You know what? The heck? I'm just gonna do it, and see what happens." He's talked a lot about it. I've heard, just that it's transformational. And I thought it was gonna be more of a business thing too. I, like, brought my laptop and thought I'd be, like, doing work, like, "All right, that's cool. I'll go and I'll just kinda check it out." And there's no just, like, checking it out. It was, like, either you're all in or you're not. And at the end of the 3 days, I remember, I mean, this is a beautiful experience, like, and it's one of those experiences in your life where, like, you ever have those times where you just feel so much love? It's like when your child first comes to this earth and you get to hold them for the first time. Like, there's times in my life where I can think, like, I've experienced just an immense amount of love, and that comes from within, right? Like, there's nothing external. That's, like, something that comes from within, and at the end of this training, I just felt that kind of love and that, like, love for myself and that excitement for life, and I didn't have any desire to, like, use anything or to check out. Like, I was so excited to go back to my life and experience everything with a different perspective and step through those fears. And I said to the facilitator, Shane Scott, I said, "Shane, this is crazy, but we didn't talk about addiction once. But I don't feel like using anything. I don't feel like checking out." And I even had the thought, like, probably will wear off in a little bit." It didn't.
Right.
I still don't, like,
Thank goodness.
yeah, but
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
yeah, yeah, lucky for us.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but it turns out, like, he actually does this in addiction recovery, and he has an 80 to 85% efficacy rate. So, when Brian says it meets you where you're at, it really does. We've had billionaires come through. We've had, um, a stripper come through trying to change her life at the
In the
same
same
time,
training.
and at the end of it, we realize we're all mirrors of each other. Yeah, and it's so crazy, but there's not anybody that it can't help with what you're wanting to discover, right? And it's all about discovering yourself. And I really think, like, this is the thing that I've come to learn in working with hundreds of people and talking to them and, like, learning what their fears are, and what it doesn't matter what level you're at. we all have the same self-worth. It all comes down to self-love and self-worth. And I really believe that our greatest challenge in this life is learning to truly love ourselves. Because if we're showing up and we love ourselves, we're able to show up in a way where we can be there for others and we can truly do things that are impactful and make a difference.
Well, it sounds like it was a divine appointment in a couple of ways, the transformation in your life, but also you got to meet Brian there.
I did.
Well, and she has a crazy story with that too.
Right. You have me
Yeah,
tell
oh,
this.
yeah.
Pretty-
I feel like he's sort of tell the story.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. Keep talking. I don't have to if you do.
Yeah, right. No, no, I did like the night before the training, I had this thought of like, it's so weird to think that I'm gonna meet my future husband in this training. And then like I was like, that is the I'm not even like the other part of me was like, that's a weird thought, Nicole. Like you're just being a weirdo. Like this is, I'm not even there. I'm not even looking. And then I like got into the training and I looked around and I was like, definitely not marrying anybody in this training. Um, but I hadn't seen Brian or met him yet or anything, I hadn't experienced him. And then there's some guy behind me who keeps saying all the sarcastic things that I'm thinking in my head. He's saying out loud. And I was like, oh, I gotta who is this person? And so we got to know each other. It was really kind of fun. We started like kind of working together, like just supporting each other in the projects that we had going on. And when I read Brian's book, I was like, I love this book and I want to support you in getting this out there and helping people because I've experienced the other side of that as the family members.
I find when we're not looking for stuff, sometimes I think that's when we find it, right? I feel like so many people's love story starts with, I wasn't looking, right? That's the last thing I wanted. And then there it was. And although in your case, you felt a little tinge like this might be the day, right? How long ago was this?
4 years ago.
4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, is this what has kind of, because I know through AIM, you guys do some coaching and work with folks. So this is the journey to nowhere part or nobody, sorry.
That's okay.
Journey to nowhere is a totally different feel, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
journey is that part of what you guys do with clients who come through for AIM?
We absolutely encourage it to everybody we care about, which is everybody, right? So, like, because of what we just said, it meets you where you're at. I don't care where you're at. You're gonna walk out of there and say, "I am grateful I went," right? And you'll have a shift because of it. And especially the people that we work with, we're like, "Look, we're gonna work with you. We want you to experience this because it gives us a language to communicate on a level of integrity, of being your word and all those things." And there's a connection there, right? Like it's the reason that we're still married. Um, be- because we can call each other out in a way that's loving and because it is all about accountability, right? And so, yes, it drives everything. It's not.
Well, it's what inspired, I think, AIM Elevated. So AIM Elevated is advancing impactful missions. And the whole purpose of that is we wanted to get people together because we're in a lot of these, we go to a lot of these high level events with, very driven, very successful people. And it was like, there's kind of a piece we felt was missing. And that was that we're all getting together and we all are in these rooms, but really connecting with the people that you're in alignment with is a bigger challenge because there's so many people. And it's like, you're kind of going like, yes, no, I'm going to talk to you. I want to follow up with you. And it's kind of, it's fun, but we want it to be more purposeful and more intentional in what we were creating. And so we thought, let's do an event where we have everybody come together. But what we're having come together is not just high net worth, but it's high heart worth. So, a lot of us have experienced life at this point and we've built some things and we've had success in different areas, but it's like, now what? What do we want to do? How do we want to make a difference in the world? So I like to say we're not just opening doors for ourselves, we're opening doors for others and we're building bridges behind us. And we want to align with people like that.
Hey, business owners, did you know there's 76.5 million faith-based and conservative consumers that are looking to support brands that align with their values?
That's a $5 trillion opportunity. And if you're not tapping into it, you're leaving money on the table. Our new book, Liberty Spenders, is your ultimate guide to reaching this influential audience using conviction-driven marketing.
That's right. We break down real-world strategies that successful brands are using right now to connect with this audience authentically, build trust, and drive long-term business growth.
So if you're truly serious about standing out in today's crowded market, grab your copy today on Amazon or visit libertyspenders.com. And don't miss out on this revolutionary strategy called conviction-driven marketing. Well, that's that's how we met in some respects. We got to give a great shout out to the wonderful Kevin Thompson, who
Yes.
connected us. And he had mentioned to me, I think a couple of other times, that I'd consider going to an event called Jetson Capital, which is an event designed for family offices and people who are looking for investments. But he'd also said, you need to meet Brian and Nicole, and they have this great kind of impact-oriented event or group that sort of surrounds Jetson Capital. And I finally relented. It's like, okay, we'll do this call, but the event's in 3 days or something. And
Yeah,
I can't
2
I
days.
can't go to this event. And, Chris and I have made a kind of real hard commitment that, 2 years ago when we were still part of Tony Robbins's mastermind, we were all over the world, literally. I think in 2023, we were in 14 countries for various times. And, our kids were super young babies at that time. And Kristen realized at one point that our year-old, we'd been gone 4 months on the road at various times. We thought, we got to stop this. So we thought, we've made a commitment. We're not doing as much travel. So I come into this, Nicole and Brian Slade meeting thinking, I'm not going to this thing. And because I can't, we've made this firm commitment. We're not doing this kind of crazy travel. And even if this was right on, I'll have to go to this one in May, because I'll need to plan. But I met the two of you, and you talked both about the impact event you were holding before and the Jetson Capital event. And it was really my wife you won over, because she was like, you should go. You should really do it. And I'm like, well, but we got to get babysitting. We got to do all this. And we'll figure it out. But
And
I
we still haven't
came
met her in person.
What an
yeah,
awesome wife.
I know. Well, hopefully
Yes.
soon.
Yeah.
She just loves the kids. So it's like she wants to come to this stuff, but she's like, I get the fun part. I get to stay home. And she took the kids to Disney on Ice while I was out of town. But she was excited, and I went, and it was such a great, both events, the impact oriented event that you guys put on, and also Jetson Capital's another hat tip to Jordan Hutchinson, who runs that. So I think I probably got a little bit of that AIM elevated experience myself at that event, and met a lot of people who, like you said, they're, going to events like Jetson Capital, but they're so mission driven, and they want to meet other people who are the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the power of it. Really, we talked about that. The event itself, yeah, it was a cool venue or whatever, but we didn't do anything that spectacular. We just put spectacular people together and then challenged them to be authentic. Right. And I think people crave that. They crave that connection. We want to be authentic. We want to be our authentic selves. We have this urge sometimes to show up a different way, but deep down, we want to be authentic, and we want people to appreciate our authentic selves. And that's really what was the magic of it. It wasn't that there was some phenomenal, entertainment or anything like that. It was just phenomenal people.
Well, and the relationships that have continued to grow since the event. And it's been so fun to watch people develop, partnerships, friendships, just doing business together and just having fun together. And it's so cool to see that happen after the event and following up with people and finding out people that I never would have put together, that I never would have thought developed those kind of relationships are doing lots of cool things together now. So it's been really fun.
Yeah, I'll tell you, for a relatively small event, I think there was maybe 45 people there. You would know obviously exactly the number, but I am now doing something with at least 3 people. I'm helping Barry Shore with, who's the coolest human being, right? I'm helping Barry with his Einstein Cares tool. I've helped him come up. I mean, we've worked together and helped him come up with a way to really grow it. That he's particularly excited about. He was just texting me today. And then Dan, I always get his last name wrong, saying it wrong. Dan Cashel, right? He was the first person I met. It came in, I shook Dan's hand, and then I met Brian, who had only saw Brian on Zoom in like a dark room. I was like, who's this guy? Because Brian came up, was like, great to see you. And I'm thinking, I got to pretend I recognize this guy. He had this gorgeous red suit on. It was just like, you're going to fit in great with Robin Thicke. And, and Dan and I are doing something together. We just had a call with his team just about an hour ago. And then I met Jonathan Kronstadt, Jay Cron, who's been a great advisor. Jock, who I met there, it made an introduction to somebody who's going to become a client. So like that's a lot from a quick couple hours,
And we run into it every day. Like people are like, oh, I'm talking, and sometimes they even forget that's where they met. They're like, oh, there's this guy, and they tell you, there's a guy you need to meet is, Victor. And I'm like, Victor, Cho? And they're like, yeah. Well, you met him at our, oh yeah. That's right.
Yeah. It was I think it takes something to curate that kind of group too, because you put 45 people in the room and 7 or 8 of them have the wrong attitude, and it ruins the whole experience, right? Because it puts a vibe into the group that everything's transactional or me first. And so curating that is such an important thing. So hats off to you guys and your team. You're curating such a good group of people who are there to make some authentic connections. And that's where you end up with wonderful collaborations, is when you've, put together such an interesting group of people. Stephen Hall, who was there, by the way, I already met Stephen, we'd already considered hiring him as our accountant. But when I saw him there, I said, that's the last straw. I'm definitely going to hire this guy because we're hanging in the right groups together, right?
We like Stephen.
Yeah,
a lot.
He's great. And so I see that as kind of part of what you guys are doing with AIM Elevated is, kind of curating these groups and making, introductions to people that are just incredibly valuable, like the ones that you facilitated for me just by sticking me in the room.
Well, that's the whole point. And that's all we wanted to have. You guys get in the room and make the magic happen, and that's really what happens,
Yeah, it's such an amazing talent. It sounds easy, but it's not, right? Because so much of it is subtle about the kinds of people you're trying to invite to, be part of your network. And then you guys were great host and hostess, and I got to travel around in your Jeep. You guys were like my chauffeur. It was great.
Oh, you're amazing. Thank you, Kurt, for just being a part of it. It was so fun to have you there. It was so fun to meet you in person. And we actually have a picture of the first time you and Brian met because we had a photographer there.
Yeah.
And Brian going in for the hug. And it's just so funny.
And you're going, what the heck is this?
Knowing that you didn't know who this was, and Brian's just totally embracing you. I'm like, it's one of my favorite pictures of the whole event now.
Yeah, well, maybe I need this. I don't know that I've seen it because I need to see if I can read on my own face that I was thinking to myself, who is this?
This was your face.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I'll send you the picture.
So I don't know if you could tell or not. But.
No, it was such a great event. What are the kinds of people that you are looking to serve with AIM? Help people who are listening. Who are the kinds of folks that should be raising their hands and saying, I want to talk to Brian and Nicole?
We always did. I mean, she said it, I think, at the beginning, but high net worth, high heart worth, right? Really, if you see that your success is a tool and a blessing, and that you feel a stewardship over that to try to create greater impact in the world and in your business, of course, but you have passions as well, and that understanding that really there's competition, there's collaboration, right? And collaboration just wins. It just wins every time. And so if you're one of those type of people, that's really the type of people we want to put in the room. We call them go-getters and go-givers, right? Um, and then this one I just started saying, and
Oh, no.
I keep saying it, the movers and the shakers and the impact makers, right? Because that's
That's
really what
great.
that's
I
really what
love
it is.
that.
Yeah, that came out in a Zoom or a podcast. It just came out and I was like, that one's gonna get used. I'm gonna say that again.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
Brian.
think that's a great description.
Yeah.
What is your background, Nicole? We talked a little bit about Brian's and his work in the military. Now I know how you're coaching and working with people. What did you do before all of this?
I started out, like, years ago, like, it feels like, 5 lifetimes ago, but, when I first was gonna be a single mom, I was going through a divorce, and I thought, "What am I gonna do with my life?" And, I don't have a formal education to fall back on. I didn't, like, I'd been a stay-at-home mom most of the time, and I thought, "What am I gonna do?" Like, and I always loved working with people, and I thought, well, I looked around and kinda, like, went and interviewed at a bunch of places, and what I realized is sales really was the opportunity for me to make, 6 figures and be able to support my family the way I wanted to and not be draining on my ex-husband, right? I didn't wanna just have to have him support me. I wanted to do it myself. Um, and so I got into sales is kinda where I started. I started in sales. Oh my goodness. I started out on, like, the 2, I think, most challenging types of sales. I did insurance first for a little bit, and that was super interesting. I learned a lot and, not to disparage anybody who does insurance, but I was like, "This is not for me." Um, just, it wasn't like it was okay, and I did okay at it, but it wasn't something that I loved. And then I went to auto sales. I started out in auto sales, and that was also very difficult. I think the first 6 months I cried, like, almost every day, like, "What am I doing with my life? But I've gotta figure this out and make it work." And s Go ahead. So then I started and, kind of things started clicking, and I was, like, reading a lot of books and, like, kind of figuring it out, and I realized, like, "Oh, I'm really just connecting people. What I've always done is connect people. I'm connecting people to what they want." And I really just enjoyed that part of it, and then I got pretty good at it, and I moved on. I read a book, Sapiens, and I thought, "I've gotta get out of auto, that's dying. AI is kinda the next wave. I wanna get into tech." Um, so I went into tech sales, and from there, went into business development. And as I was doing business development and working with organizations that way, what I realized is everybody needs funding. Um, all of you're working in the tech startup and it's all about who's your VC, what round of funding are you at, getting ready for that next round. And so I really was like, okay, I want to get involved more in the capital game and like, the capital markets. And I knew a lot of founders and I knew funders too. And so I kind of started just marrying them up like, okay, let's do intros here. And what I found is it's just really fun doing intros all the time. Like I really like what I love doing is connecting people. And so I just started connecting people just because it's what I enjoyed. And then pretty soon it was like people were coming to me for connections and I was spending my whole day connecting people. And I wasn't even, like, doing some of the other stuff that I really needed to be doing that was, like, income producing stuff. And I was kind of getting disillusioned with the tech world and with kind of the way things were going. I mean, we have these crazy bloated evaluations in America and, like, how, like, and, like, people are spending money that they don't really have, and it's just kind of like this and it wasn't like nothing seemed very purposeful. Everybody was just all about getting that next series. And I didn't, like, love it, and I said to Brian one day, I was like, I'd really love to just make money networking. Like, I wanna just connect people and make cool things happen in the world, and that's really, like, where my heart is, and my heart's not in this other stuff. And, such a great supporter and such an amazing husband that he really helped me kind of launch what we're doing now. That's what brought us to where we're at now is, like, I had this amazing network, and I got to meet people at conferences all over the United States. And so I have, people that I knew everywhere that were just really wonderful people, and I wanted to be able to bring them all together. And it's kind of fun now we get to do that every day.
Yeah. So you have trauma to triumph and founders to funders,
Yeah.
right? So you have T to T and F to F, right?
F to F could be a lot of things,
Yeah,
though.
yeah, that's probably true. Maybe you might get a different kind of caller on that. Maybe
Yeah.
we should,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you guys do such a great job at it, and like I said, the work with the impact event prior to the Jetson Capital was so great, um, and you guys have something really figured out. Well, as we get close to our end, I wanted to do our typical lightning round. I have been wanting to add a sound effect to this part for almost a year, and nothing brings me more satisfaction. So,
Mission
um,
accomplished.
yeah, exactly,
Great
exactly.
sound.
The year is a success.
Yes, exactly. That's a win for me every time it puts a smile on my face. But we love to give. We get such great moments in these final three questions we ask everybody, and I wanted to give you a chance to do it too. To first talk about the legacy you guys want to leave behind, whether it's with Cleared Hot Brian or with AIM Elevated Brian and Nicole, or your triumph, your tragedy to triumph. Um, what legacy are you looking to leave behind there?
I I think we kind of nailed it in the naming of our last of this final venture. I mean, uh, we want to advance impactful missions, whatever they are. Um, Things that are raising the vibration on the planet, right? Raising the vibration in the things that we do, how we interact with each other, how we look out for each other, how we work together. Eh, There's just there's not a shortage of amazing people in this world, but often they find themselves working in silos. And so we just want to connect them and then see the magic happen.
That's great. I also want to give you some time to talk about anything you want. It just can't be about what we've been talking about. It can't be about the book, can't be about AIM or your charity. Maybe it's a hobby that's got you interested lately, or a sports team you're a fanatic about, or a great book you read. What's one thing that's really gotten your attention lately?
Oh man, this is such a great question because I feel like this is everything that we like. We are like we like don't we haven't like our vacations, our work trips, like this is just our life right now. But I think one thing that I've really loved is that I've been really excited about lately has been meditation. And I know that's kind of like a nerdy, like I'm like but I love it. It's really like helping kick off my day in a great way. I went to a Joe Dispenza event. I love his book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And that's just been really cool. And I've really enjoyed that piece of like just really like looking at myself and saying, what are the things I do to like self-sabotage, or like what are the things about myself that I would like to change, right? Get out of like these limiting beliefs patterns. We all have them, and it's what we teach and it's what we do. But sometimes when you're so busy like doing it and seeing it in others, you forget to look at yourself, right? It's really a really easy way to not look at yourself. So I've really been enjoying that piece of it, of the meditation. Oh, and we weren't supposed to talk about like the other stuff. I'm so bad at this, Kurt.
She still tied it in.
Oh, no, you did great. You did great. It's amazing uh, I get the most interesting answers to this question. One of my guests gave a 30-minute answer, but it could have been it was almost as interesting as the entire episode. And so, really fantastic. And then I wanted to give you guys, this is 90 seconds of gratuitous self-promotion. So you can pick kind of what flavor you want to go, but it could be on who should be working with you guys, who should be giving you a call, why should they, or maybe you want to talk about who should be reading the book, whatever fits. But 90 seconds of, if this is only thing people listen to, why should they be reaching out to the two of you?
We got 90 seconds. Better hurry.
I know I might go, Brian.
Yeah. So I think, we started with the Journey to Nobody. So people can go check out thejourneytonobody.com and you can kind of see some testimonials or whatever, and I encourage anybody to sign up for that because that will change your life. Then obviously we already talked about the people that for AIM Elevated, if you find yourself in that high net worth, high heart worth, mover, shaker, impact maker, then definitely hit us up on, we just changed our website. Is it up yet? AIM Elevated?
It'll be aim-elevated.com. It's just getting up. But you can also always reach out to us personally. Can I give my cell phone number on here?
Yeah, if you don't mind people giving you a call.
Not at all. Not at all. No, I want people to reach out to me. Please reach out. Reach out for any of the reasons. Reach out if you want to go to Journey to Nobody. Reach out if you want to be part of AIM Elevated or come to one of our events. But my phone number is 801-623-7083. And I would love it. If somebody called me, I would just be so happy to hear from them.
And if you like war stories, read the book.
Yes.
Yeah. I do.
Actually, I've had a lot of people that said, I don't even read war books, and they've read it and they're like, I got so much out of it. I loved it. I've had a lot of women say, I love this book, which surprised me. I thought I would get a lot of men. I didn't think women would be reading it. But I've had a lot.
It is good. It's really
Yeah.
good.
Well, I've gotten through a couple chapters and I'm very interested. I like war stories, right? Probably because I've not lived any of them.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. We really appreciate both of you coming to join us. For people who want to reach out, they've just given you all their contact information, so please do so, and their phone numbers. So get in touch, and you can hit them up at aimelevated.com. Thank you, anyone, for tuning in. If you love this episode, please like and subscribe so you can catch the next one. We invite you also to join our Liberty Partnership community at libertyspenders.com. And if you want to learn more about what we are up to, check us out in our new book at libertyspenders.com/free. And until next time. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Liberty Spenders podcast. If you're a business owner, we hope today's conversation gave you valuable insights on how to grow your business.
If you enjoyed the show, do us a favor. Hit like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review. It really helps us reach more entrepreneurs and leaders like you who are ready to make an impact.
And write something flattering, because I read them all. Don't forget to grab your copy of Liberty Spenders too, available now on Amazon and at libertyspenders.com. It's packed with proven strategies to help you reach the 76.5 million consumers who are looking for brands that share their values.
We'll see you next time as we continue exploring how to grow your business with purpose and conviction.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode and the one after that.